the ultimate goal was always if the parent could run the session by the end, if they could actually do all of the things that I would do by the end of treatment, then I've, imparted enough of my knowledge to them.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Therapy Unmasked. I'm Nick Sidwell, and we've got a wonderful guest here with us, Rhonda Roth. We're going to talk to her a little bit about her journey and the things that she's done in her career. And we hope that you enjoy our episode here at Therapy Unmasked. So, Rhonda, welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome to this podcast. We try and give a lot of resources out to families, and we want to, hopefully find some nuggets of interesting stuff and also things that maybe parents could take home and use. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got into occupational therapy.
Oh, that's a long story, Nick. So I'm from Colorado originally, where I was born and raised. Actually, I grew up there. I wasn't born there. And I got into occupational therapy. At 14, I started volunteering at a therapeutic horseback riding center. And I was exercising their horses and mucking the stalls, but I got to see some of the lessons and that kind of thing. And I continued doing that all the way through my undergrad at Colorado State University. And my junior year of college, I discovered occupational therapy while I was doing a internship in Indiana. This occupational therapist was amazing. And I was like, I want to be her when I grow up. And so I went back and started applying for OT schools, and history. That's kind of how I got here.
Well, what was it that drove you towards occupational therapy that you thought hey, this is the career that I want to do? Just seeing an awesome therapist and thinking that you want to be that?
She was so much better at working with the kids and the adults with disabilities than just the therapeutic riding instructors. And the things that she did just seemed to have so much more impact. And, I was so intrigued by how she thought and how she looked at things and how she kind of was able to break things down in a way that nobody else could. And I was I just so wanted to be able to help kids in the way that she was helping kids.
I kind of saw that early on too, when I was in school, and even before, as I was shadowing, because we have to shadow an occupational therapist before you even get into a program, right? You have to have several hours. And I was amazed by how they could just break things down. They could see something and go, okay, we need to do this first and then this and then this. Yeah. And it just blew my mind, right? Yeah. So you saw that too.
Yeah, just, little things that occupational therapists are able to pick up on that I think, I had a really awesome professor in OT school named Chi-Kwan Shea. And she used to tell us to put on our OT glasses. And I still say that to my students now because I think it's true. We just have a different view of the world and we pick up on things and we're just a little more perceptive, I think.
Yeah. And I think part of it is we're trained that way, but I think certain kinds of people end up in the career path because they are already good at that.
I think so too.
So I always wonder, because some people say I'm a sensory mess. And so that's where I went. I went to occupational therapy to get help with my sensory mess. And did you ever find that?
I was telling my students whenever I'm teaching about sensory integration, my mom was always like, Rhonda is so hard on everything. I always close doors too hard. And you could hear me walking upstairs and I've just always been really heavy footed. And it wasn't until OT school that I was oh my gosh, I have sensory processing problems. That's clearly, I always say we end up doing what we actually probably needed as kids. And when we were kids, this wasn't available really, and a lot of the sensory integration stuff, especially it just wasn't recognized.
And it's come leaps and bounds, right?
It's amazing.
But I love seeing that impact too in our clients that we work with. Yeah. Because I've even done sensory integration stuff with adults. Yes. And it's huge for adults. And just like you're saying, it wasn't around when they were kids. So some of these things they're learning for the first time.
Yeah. And I think, one of the coolest things when you're working in pediatrics, even, and you're working with a kid with sensory processing problems, is that they'll have a parent who's sitting there in the session and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is me. I needed this when I was a kid. This wasn't around.
Yeah. And there's several times where I've turned to the mom or the dad and said, you can do this at home too. And they're like, I'm going to.
Yeah.
Do it right alongside your kid.
Exactly. Yep.
Awesome. Well, then you wound up at the University of Utah. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I mean, that was quite a few years into my career. Before that, I had worked in Colorado at a sensory integration clinic and in some schools. I worked in Washington in a school district and skilled nursing facilities. And then I was in Boise, Idaho after that. And I worked in schools and skilled nursing there and an outpatient clinic. And then we ended up in Utah, and this amazing job at the Life Skills Clinic just kind of fell into my lap. And it was an amazing opportunity to just grow as a therapist, grow my leadership skills quite a bit. It also led to an opportunity to teach in their Masters of Occupational Therapy program. And I had taught before a little bit, just like guest lecturing and that kind of thing. But once I got up there and started teaching pediatric OT, it was like, okay, this is amazing.
The clouds opened up and you're like, this is what I should do.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cool just to see students go from not knowing anything about occupational therapy, especially in pediatrics. They kind of come in and it's such a broad topic and they're like, they're scared, and some of them are like scared of the kids when they first come in because they're not coming into OT to be a pediatric therapist. And so many times I would see students go from being really uncomfortable with kids to all of a sudden they're comfortable and they're confident and things start to click. And it was just really cool to get to pass my knowledge and experience on.
And you find you knew that you wanted to go into pediatrics from the beginning, right?
Well, I actually started out in acute care. I was actually at an acute care, like a huge city hospital, and I absolutely hated it. Like I literally cried every day. I was like, this job is terrible. I just want to go play with kids. So it wasn't until about 6 months into my career that I left that job and went into pediatrics. And I've bounced around though a little bit throughout my career, and I've still gone back and done some skilled nursing. And I would say to my students, I've worked with 0 to 106. So, I've done everything in between. And it's one of the cool things about occupational therapy is
you can.
Yeah, you
There's
can,
so
you can do pretty much anything as an OT.
Zero in on certain specialties or things like that, but you can also stay broad and see birth to 110.
Yeah. But what's really funny is I remember very distinctly in OT school when we were doing our sensory integration week, and I had a friend who was like, oh, this stuff is so cool. Like, I'm so interested. And I was like, I will never be a sensory integration therapist.
And here you are today.
And never say never. Yeah. I worked in a clinic in Colorado that was owned by Carrie Hall, and it just totally changed my entire career trajectory. It was like all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is why I'm an OT. This is what I'm supposed to be able to do, because it just clicked. Like sensory integration just made sense to me.
So you learned it in school and you're like, no, I'll never do this.
I was like, I'm never going to do this. And then once I started working someplace where it was a true sensory integration clinic, I was like, yep, this is it. This makes sense. I was seeing progress with the kids. That was really quick. It's the first time I'd ever discharged a kid in like 9 months, like start to finish. I remember I had one kid they discharged in 3 months with sensory problems. And I was like, okay, this is magic. This is magic. What we're doing is magical. Yeah. And I was hooked.
So you got to see like how you can use sensory integration to really bump what a kid is doing. Because the reality is that every kid is developing their sensory system. And so it's easy to address that from a developmental standpoint, but then there's always gaps and holes, right? Of things that, everybody, even adults, we have sensory needs. We just learn to meet them in different ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that led you towards like the Life Skills Clinic at the U.
Yeah.
And then you opened your own clinic.
I did. While I was working on my Doctor of Occupational Therapy at the U, working at the Life Skills Clinic, I was doing school contracts for them. And then I thought, why not just
throw something else on there?
Start my own clinic on top of it all. But even from the time I started at the Life Skills Clinic, I told them in my interview, because they were like, what's your ultimate dream? And I was like, I would love to own my own clinic. They were in full support of it. It was really amazing. I was able to tell my boss like 6 months before I was leaving. Like, hey, I'm going to do this. And she was like, great, just tell us what you need.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So we started Children in Motion 2021, I believe.
And you grew that little clinic, because I remember when you were opening it, and I was like, you can do it, Rhonda.
You were so cool about helping me. And like, it's been one of the coolest things is the clinic owners in Utah are just...
There's not many of us.
There's not many, but everybody is so supportive of everybody else. And everybody, like, we all have become friends. And it was like the most welcoming network of people. And it was just so cool because it was not competition. It was just like, welcome to the group. And I had so many people just come and like welcome me into the community. It was really cool.
The rigors and the joys and the sorrows of opening a clinic.
It's not an easy job.
So how long did you run your clinic?
So 2021, and then I sold it to you in 2025 in February. So that's when it became part of Ability Innovations. And yeah, the family there.
3 years. Tell us a little bit about that process of going like, okay, I need to move on to something else, and how that went for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a big part of wanting to start my own clinic is I had worked so many different places, and I never felt like I found a place where I could really do therapy my way and the way that I really believed it should be done, ways that I really felt were based in research and evidence. And I just had some really, I think, kind of crazy ideas about how OT should be done. And I really had a hard time in every other job I ever worked of really getting buy-in from the administration or whatever in terms of this is how I want to do therapy.
How to do therapy, yeah.
And so that really made me go like, this is what I want to do. And a lot of what I pulled from was the clinic called Sensory Pathways in Colorado, which was founded by Lucy Jane Miller, actually, who's one of our, big sensory integration people. She founded the Star Institute in Denver. She's trained some of the Children in Motion therapists, myself included. And, how they did therapy there, like I said, I had kids that would discharge so quickly because of the model that we were using. And I really believed in what they were doing. And I was like, this is what Utah needs. And at that point in time, there was nobody really doing a sensory integration specialty clinic in the area.
And it's still few and far between.
So few and far between. Yeah.
So you really attached on to the sensory integration. But what were some other things that you saw in clinics that you were like we've got to do this better? What, if parents are listening to this at home, what would they think? Like, hey, we need to look for these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things. So the first thing was parent involvement. And even in the sensory clinic that I worked in Denver, the therapist would be in the treatment room with the kid and the parents were out in the waiting room.
Yeah, and that's so common.
It's so common. And I was like, okay, there's this disconnect because a lot of times like follow through was terrible with home programming. And, there's only so much in the last 5 minutes standing in the waiting room that you can kind of impart onto a parent as they're like trying to gather their child and get out the door. Right. And so one of the things I started doing from the start of Children in Motion was putting the expectation in place for parents that I wanted them in the room, not on their cell phones. I really wanted them in there and engaged. And, the ultimate goal was always if the parent could run the session by the end, right? If they could actually do all of the things that I would do by the end of treatment, then I've, imparted enough of my knowledge to them that they won't need me anymore. And that was really our goal always with Children in Motion is we really wanted to educate and train parents so that we didn't want kids to need therapy for forever. We wanted them to be able to discharge and go on and have normal everyday lives and be kids. Because, when you look at what happens when kids have a challenge or they have a disability, a lot of times they spend so much of their lives in therapy. And, it's a speech appointment and a PT appointment and an OT appointment and psychotherapy or what have you. And our goal was just to get kids back to living their lives, which I think just speaks to occupational therapy, right? Like that's really what we're supposed to be about is getting kids back to their everyday lives and helping them build the skills to get back to life, not be in therapy for the rest of their lives. But it takes parents to do that because if parents don't see what we're doing, if they're not engaged in it, if they don't understand it on a really deep level, A, you don't get buy-in, and B, you don't get progress.
Yeah.
And I used to say to the children in motion staff all the time, like, if the parent's not in there, if they're not doing the activity, if they're not bought in, you're just wasting an hour of your week, right? You're just wasting an hour of their time, and they have no idea what you're doing back there, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could just be playing with their kid. How do you know what they're doing in the therapy room if you're not actually back there?
I mean, we know that the parents are key, and not just because they're the ones that are with the kid the most.
Right.
I mean, kids go to school for 7 hours a day, and then parents are with them. But even in the summer, parents are still with their kids, and they probably see way more of the problem areas that we're trying to address than we ever will.
Yep.
We as therapists, we get like these snapshots, right?
Yeah. And I think so often kids will come into a therapy session, and because we're so play-based, we're so much fun, sometimes it takes forever before we see anything. Yeah, right? And we're like, why are you here? And I always say parents know their child better than anybody, right? Like, they have raised that child from before that child was even, out of the womb. Right. That child, like, they know that child more deeply than anyone else can ever know that child. And so when you take them out of the equation, you lose
this huge part.
You do. You miss a huge part of what's happening with that child on a daily basis.
And I know that some parents, they can't be in those sessions. They've got several other kids, or they've got issues themselves, and it just doesn't, like, that setting doesn't work for them. What have you found for those kind of parents?
Sometimes at Children in Motion, we were able to work around that. If, sometimes it's great to have siblings in there, right? Yeah. Sometimes it gives the therapist a better
natural playmates.
Well, exactly. And sometimes when we get those parents who are coming in and they're like, I have 4 kids at home. Life is crazy. And again, we're still not getting a true representation of that child's life if it's just the child and the parent, and there's 4 siblings at home that are also all dysregulated.
Right.
So actually, some of the most interesting sessions were when siblings were coming into those sessions with the therapist and the parents. And because sometimes the therapist would come out and they'd be like, whoa, no wonder this mom is so, like, overstimulated and overwhelmed. And I think it gives another picture of how can we help this parent? How can we really build skills?
The child that we're focusing on, help their situation larger than just the child. Yeah.
And sometimes what we would find is we've had a couple situations where parents were bringing in this child, like child A was coming in and they were like, oh my gosh, they're so dysregulated. And then they would show up with, like, both. And we would be like, oh, have you noticed this kid and this kid, like, they dysregulate each other because this child's actually seeking off of this child. And so sometimes it would end up that both of them actually needed to be in therapy. A lot of times it's the child that's not like the parent in terms of their sensory profile that, kind of grinds on the parent a little bit and makes the parent go like, you need therapy. And sometimes it was the kid that was more neurologically like the parent, that they were like, they're fine. They're just like me.
Yeah.
And then that's how you start to kind of break these things down.
I mean, it sounds like you've learned a ton.
I've learned so much.
In not just your career, but also the things that you've been trying to do. And you're still imparting that wisdom. Yes. But I wanted to, before we go into where you're at today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about this crazy therapist that you sold your clinic to.
He's not crazy, he's amazing.
Which is myself. Yes. Right. And I wanted to kind of frame, so at Ability Innovations, we also encourage parents to come into the sessions and be there and observe and participate as much as they can. Yes. But it's even more so at Children in Motion. And so what I have found is that it's like this happy relationship where I feel like Ability Innovations is a level 1 kind of clinic. And there's some families that can do even more. And they could go to this level 2 clinic that is Children in Motion. Yeah. And so it's been kind of this happy family that we've built up where I'm hoping that we can take these 2 levels of programs and meld them together even more in the future. And that was bittersweet for you to leave, right?
It was. It's always hard to leave something, I think, that you've started and you put your blood, sweat, and tears into, literally. Yeah.
But the cool thing is that now that we're friends, not that we weren't before, but now that we know each other a little bit more,
Yes.
like we can kind of help each other figure out how to make the best situation possible for the families that we serve going forward. And I think one of the neatest ways, this is my segue.
Okay.
One of the neatest ways is that you work at Weber University right now. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I sold Children in Motion was that this amazing opportunity came up to go to Weber State University and help them start a Bachelor's of Science in Occupational Therapy Assisting. And yeah, it was just too cool of an opportunity to pass up. And I had really been missing teaching students. And it felt like the right time for Children in Motion and for my family and for myself professionally to kind of make that leap.
And so you're going to bring a whole new level of professionals out into the field.
Yes.
And there is a huge need right now for occupational therapy assistants.
Yes. Yes.
Like we're still not where we should be in the state with however many practitioners that we need.
We need so many more practitioners. And that's actually how this program got started. They had a private donor approach Weber State, and they were like, we are having a really hard time hiring. And so they donated money to start they just wanted some kind of a rehab program. And they really left it up to Weber to decide what way to go. And lucky for us as occupational therapists, they chose occupational therapy. And I think because they were really excited about what our field represents and what our profession does for our clients and how holistic we are, they just, I think, felt that it really aligns with Weber State University's mission. And so, yeah, we're really excited. We're going to admit our first cohort of hopefully 24 occupational therapy assisting students next fall. So fall 2026. It is a 4-year bachelor's program, which we're really excited about. It will allow the students to they can take that bachelor's degree, they can sit for their national boards, and they can come work at Ability Innovations or at Children in Motion right off the bat. Once they pass their exams and they get their license, they can do that. Or they can choose to go on to grad school with that degree right away. So instead of having an associate's degree where they have to go back and get a bachelor's, this is going to allow them to have a lot more pathways. And even if they get in there and they're like, I want to be a PT, they can take that degree and they can become a PT. They can go become a PA. They can go to med school, or they can go to get a master's or an entry-level doctorate in occupational therapy. So we're really excited. It's the first occupational therapy program in Northern Utah.
And it's one of the first OTA programs that offer a bachelor's.
It is. We're one of 2 in the state of Utah, and there's only like 13 in the entire United States right now that are offering a bachelor's. So it's really cool. It's exciting to be on something so ground level and getting to really work with Robin Thompson, who's our program director, to build it up.
Well, and you add such perspective and so many great like values and things to, I mean, I've seen it through Children in Motion as I've taken the reins. But also, like, I'm excited for the students that are going to come out of there. If you knew of, I'm sure, like, I've talked to some parents that are sitting at home going, like occupational therapy sounds so amazing, and I see what they do for my kid or something like that. What would you say to aspiring students that might want to check into your program?
Oh, come and talk to us. Come hang out. Also, just, I mean, one of the really cool things is they are building us a brand new building on Weber State University's campus. They are.
Brand new building.
Brand new building.
That's cool.
It's actually going to be done hopefully in about 2 weeks, where we can actually start to move in and get our equipment and that kind of thing.
You move out of the broom closet.
Move out of the broom closet and into an actual building. It's a beautiful building. We have our whole like hospital simulation room. We have,
so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. We've got a pediatric gym as well. And then we also have a work hardening / adult physical disability room. And then we have a huge, beautiful kitchen area. It's all fully ADA accessible. So wheelchair accessible. Like we have a stovetop that moves up and down and a sink moves up and down. It's all really state of the art. It's amazing. So, I mean, one thing is just come and check it out. Come stop by the OT building. We'd love to kind of chat with people. We do have an academic advisor, Justin Valdez, who's in our athletic training and occupational therapy department. And he's able to kind of talk to people about, you know, what the prerequisites are and that kind of thing. And it's a great program.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, is I've had students that have been like from the high school and they're getting into the idea of occupational therapy, and they talk about some of the things that they're interested in.
Yes.
And I always tell them, you can turn that into occupational therapy.
Yes.
Like, for instance, I had a friend that was really into theater, and I'm like, there's so much you can do with theater and occupational therapy. And we started looking up programs, and we got him to a program that was kind of unique for that. And I think like whatever your passion is in life, you can make that part of your therapy.
Oh, 100%. Right. I mean, we're
Weber State
everywhere.
Is going to be prime for that as well.
The cool thing about Weber State too is they're really community engaged. They love to have their students out serving the community, and that is really what they're all about. And especially like the city of Ogden and Weber State just have this really amazing relationship with each other, and people in Ogden are just such fans of it. They call it their university. I mean, it is
their university.
It is literally their university, and they feel so connected to it. And so that's one of the things that we actually have planned for our programming is our students will be out serving the community and really working with kids and families. We've got some really great connections like with Ability Innovations to send our students here to do some field work and get hands-on experience. We're excited about our community partners as well that we're going to be working with.
Well, thank you for coming and telling us a little bit more about it and telling us a little bit more about you and getting our glimpse into who is Rhonda Roth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, and we love having people like you on, and we always are able to find these little nuggets of things that we can use that kind of spark interest in people, and especially the viewers at home. So we just wanted to thank you again, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Therapy Unmasked, and we'll hope to see you next time.